I've cursed the sky. I've begged to fall, yet still denied. The voice that says to just let go, but I've walked too far to die alone. Still I stand, though fate unwinds, a shattered man with wrath entwined. Let heaven choke, let hell demand, I'll burn it but still I
Welcome in, everybody. We are live with the interview with Nat, Chaos, and Yato himself. They will be interviewing me. They are the ones with the questions. I have no clue what the heck the questions even are. Let's bring them on in, shall we? Hello, guys.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Yato, you want to start this thing off?
Yeah, of course.
Are you asking it, or am I going to read it?
No.
All right. So, Candy's from Discord. What research did you conduct for this book?
For research? So that's actually kind of a good one, because what's really funny enough is when I started writing it, I did absolutely no research. However, when I started getting into combat scenes and Scottish terminology, especially with Moira, who has that thick Scottish accent, I had to actually look up kind of like Scottish slang from way back when. So there is like some of that. Some people might be reading it and be like, I don't know what this means. And it's old Scottish slang, as well as some locations. Instead of saying, hey, this is a castle, I use other things instead of, making it, I guess, simple. And then even combat. I was kind of just like reading combat scenes from Braveheart, Lord of the Rings, to kind of figure out my own combat scenes. So you can say that was my research, was reading and then just looking up kind of terminologies you could say.
Next, we have Anonymous from Forums asks, is this a book you'd recommend people savor slowly or binge in one sitting?
So I guess it kind of depends, because it depends, I guess you could say, what kind of reader you are, because while you're reading it, I wrote it where I don't want to say like cliffhangers at the end of every chapter, but it keeps you wanting, when you finish a chapter. Some chapters do flow into one another. Some kind of are like its own episode, you could kind of call it. If you have gone through what I've gone through, you will most likely binge it compared to the normal average person.
Okay, so Anonymous from Forums asked, what's been the most exciting or nerve-wracking part of release prep?
Ooh. So it all started, this is actually really funny, and Cotton Candies, from the awesome community that we've built, me and her were in a voice chat one night, and she was asking me questions like, hey, how do you go about self-publishing? And I started showing her, and we were on Barnes & Noble's website, and I was showing her like what I have to do. And then next thing I know, we're just kind of like, let's just set this for pre-order now. And then it was, I still have to finish writing. I still have to edit. And next thing I know, it's like, I thought I had time because today's the release date that we set. And all of a sudden I get an email in like November. Hey, you have a month to upload your manuscript. Otherwise, all of these pre-orders you've got are refunded. So it was very nerve-wracking that like, I'm like, oh my God, I have 1 month to finish writing. And I wrote a good 300 pages at that point worth of material. And then all of a sudden I rewrote chapter 1, I rewrote chapter 2, I rewrote the prelude during editing. I rewrote several chapters. Like I literally just took probably like 20 pages, hit delete and rewrote it. And they were like 30 pages next time. It was crazy. It was very nerve-wracking, a lot of no sleep and heavy amounts of caffeine and being up until like 3-5 in the morning.
So what's the next one? I have a personal question is, how do you hope your readers will be challenged or transformed after reading Ashes of the Last Paladin?
So it's a big story that I started writing that I didn't think I was actually going to turn into anything, for one thing. And I used a lot of my grief as my writing. My writing was a coping mechanism. So what I'm hoping people do get out of this is, if you're kind of going through the mire, that reading it is going to show you that you yourself will eventually find that strength to overcome whatever obstacle you're going through.
So Candies from Discord asks, how many drafts did you go through en route to the finished product?
So funny enough, I didn't do the whole, all right, I wrote the book, here's draft 1, here's draft 2, here's draft 3. I instead, especially kind of trying to get it out, I wrote a chapter, edited that chapter, sometimes rewrote the chapter. But I didn't kind of really go through drafts, but some chapters did go through several rewrites, you could say, instead, especially during editing.
To kind of go off that, it's not going to be a new question, but with that, which chapter do you think you had the most drafts for that you went through till the finished product?
Oh, I think it was chapter 14, somewhere around there. Like between like 14 and 18. I probably rewrote every night. I would get on my computer and start writing. And for a good solid week, I rewrote that chapter every single night. And it was kind of where something big happens in the book and leads into more stuff. And it was just like I'd write it. I was like, I'm not like like if I didn't feel the chapter, automatic delete. Whole entire chapter. Just wiped from existence.
Okay. Next up, we have Anonymous from Forums. If this book were adapted, would you prefer it to be a movie or a TV series?
I feel like lately, especially in the state of things, I feel like a TV series would be better. I feel like you could hit a lot of things. Like a movie, I feel like would rush the beginning and then the overcoming everything and then the outcome without giving any spoilers. Definitely, yeah, a TV series because I feel like you could focus more on each individual chapter and everything. Kind of just go from there.
Anonymous from Forums asked if your characters existed in the real world, who would you most want to meet and why?
I'd probably have to say the main character, Tamir, just because well, for one thing, I'd be like meeting myself. I wrote myself as that character, especially in the very beginning of the book. And hence why I also put in, if you go through before the prologue, I put in a segment that this book has some heavy themes in it, especially stillbirth. And it literally, the beginning just starts off so heavy. And that's what I was going for, something that just kind of like just hits you and you want to read more. So I really feel like it would have to be Tamir, the main character of the book, who I wrote partially as myself.
Anonymous from Forums was wondering, what originally sparked the idea for Ashes of the Last Paladin?
So, like I kind of said earlier, it all started as a coping mechanism. I just one night just couldn't sleep. I was still on my computer and I just popped up like Microsoft Word and just started writing. And it just turned into this. Like, and it was shortly after me and my wife lost Silas as a stillbirth. We were in just such a terrible mental state. And my writing was coping. It just like, oh, I can't sleep, or I'm angry at this, or I'm just so depressed and like all this stuff. And I think I remember writing basically what ended up being chapter 1, which went through a few rewrites. And I read it actually on my Twitch stream. And everyone was just like, dude, this is really good. And I wasn't planning on turning it into anything at that point. And then I wrote chapter 2. I wrote chapter 3. I invented characters. I wrote dialogues about characters. And I mean, there's stuff that didn't go into the book because it was like, I like to do notes. So like, a buddy of mine asked me about like D&D and stuff. And I based characters off of my friends. So like Nat's character is Moira Blackthorn, who funny enough is the Scottish character, which I find absolutely hilarious because she's Scottish. But it's just how I wanted to write that character. And I did this whole like Ellie and Joel from like The Last of Us theme between Tamir and Moira. And then my buddy Rex, he wanted like to know his character's description. I was like, well, I got you. I already wrote that description down because every character, there's like several pages of a description of who they are, who they were, what they went through, their age, details about them, their past, the weapons they use, why they're skilled with those weapons. And it just started exploding into this whole entire story, which ended up, still shocks me, it's 560 pages. I was expecting 275 tops.
Mm.
So I have a question to ask. How did you feel once you had completed writing the final lines?
That's a good question, actually. So when I finished writing the final lines, specifically the final chapter and the epilogue, I heavily recommend you read this book. Please read the epilogue. There's a heavy reason why that I cannot say in this interview, because just massive spoilers, obviously. When I finished writing the final chapter in that epilogue, I completely lost it because this was the story I started writing to cope when we lost Silas. And finishing it has this very mixed reaction inside of me, as well as how I wrote the epilogue. And I wish I could kind of expand more on that question, but I can't due to spoilers. Just know that reading the epilogue is the one thing I am heavily waiting for in my own life, which when you read the epilogue, you're going to think that's pretty dark, but at the same time, understandable. And that's all I can say without ruining anything.
Candice from Discord asked, if you were to write a spin-off about a side character, which would you pick?
I'd have to, honestly, funny enough, so I'd have to go with Nat's character Moira, and I'd have to go with Snazzy's character Siran, because I made the two of them have this dynamic where they kind of like poke fun at each other, and they're very sarcastic toward each other, and they have a very like, it could go like a brother sister vibe in a way. They're the same age because every character in this group is different ages. Tamir is older, so is Varric. Leowyn is also older, and then you've got basically these two younger 20-year-olds, like early 20s, you could say they are. And they're badass characters for one thing, but it's the dialogue between the two just gets really funny, especially because I made Nazi's character Siren very funny, and let's put it this way, he's in essence a plague doctor. He's very obsessed with the dead and flies. Like I put elements of my friends into these characters. Those would probably be the two that I would 1000% write a spinoff if I did.
Candice from Discord asks, do you ever consider the reader's perspective when you're writing?
That's a good question, honestly. So funny enough, when I was writing this book, no. This book was more, you could say, for me. And then I think when I was going through editing purposes, I started going like, if the reader reads this, continuity, they're going to need this, they're going to need that, they're going to need this. And I added chapters and added more things of like in between. You can almost say they're almost like kind of filler chapters, but not really. They add that extra element in between all the characters and just how everybody kind of flows together. So partially yes, but also no, just because of how this story started.
Heartless from Discord asked, how did you choose who would be what as you're writing and creating?
So I kind of started that for writing. I knew certain things, how I wanted it. Like I knew the middle part of the book where something big happens. I knew I had an idea. I can't say it's the same idea. Can't say it was the same idea for the ending, but it was the similar direction for one thing. Character wise, I knew who was going to be in essence the party, you could call it, kind of like a D&D party. I knew elements I was going to use, especially with Tamir, especially with my own depression, anxiety. I threw that into his character. Obviously, there are demons in this. I already knew specific demons I was actually going to use. One, without giving spoiler, his name is Azazel. I was already planning on using him as, you can call almost like the head honcho demon, kinda. You'll learn why. Yeah, I mean, kind of like I said about the character bios, I already kind of wrote all that stuff before I started heavily writing, which the heavily writing started happening after chapter 4. That's when I knew where this was going at that point. And I pre-wrote things. I would be like at my wife's niece's gymnastics competitions, and I would all of a sudden this idea would spark, and I'd pull up my phone and go into this note app I had, which connected to my computer, and just start writing notes. Like, oh, this is a good idea for the next chapter or later on, or like several chapters from now. And it was just ideas and ideas and ideas that just started flowing that I just ended up like, this chapter is going to be about this. And then all of a sudden it was 40 pages.
With your
Dusty from Discord. What happened?
Go ahead. No, I was going to add something.
No, go ahead. Add it. Add it.
What was the oddest place to get a note from for an idea for a chapter that made no sense for where you were?
Almost all of them. I mean, half the time I would be out and about. I think one time we were at one of Katie's doctor's appointments when she was pregnant with Kinsley. And it had nothing to do with anything medical as a note. You know, it was just like something random. It's just how my brain worked. It just like this random idea would pop in, and I'd be like, and I started like thinking about it and overly thinking about it. I'm like, oh, that's actually a really good idea. But knowing my ADHD, write it down so I wouldn't forget it, and then I could focus and elaborate more on it later.
Dusty from Discord asks, you plan on doing a prequel, but is there a plan for a sequel in the future?
So without giving spoilers, and I guess some context, I thought about making this into potentially a trilogy minus the prequel. Think like Lord of the Rings, then you have The Hobbit. However, when I was getting closer to the end, because the ending is what could have shifted it into another book, without obviously giving spoilers, because that just will ruin the experience. I think some people may have an idea on how this is ending. I don't think everybody does, though. It started getting hard to figure out, do I make this into 2 more books or at least 1? I felt like at that point, the story written about Tamir, where he came from, the loss that he went through and overcoming that grief would have been very, very hard to extend into 2 other books. And it's like one of those things, kind of like when movies, TV shows, and video games, they have something really good and then they just keep making more of it because they can. Call of Duty is a prime example. They just keep making one every single year, but everyone's getting burnt out about it. I felt like it would have been a similar experience where everyone's just like, the story's not as good. I kind of wish it ended like this in the first book. So I can confirm that a good 99% there will be no sequel, but there could always down the road maybe be a spin-off, but probably not a sequel.
Anonymous from forums asked, were there days you avoided writing because you knew what it would stir up?
Because every time I would write, I had to put myself into a mood. And it wasn't just a normal mood. It wasn't just like, I'm creative, I'm ready to go. It was, I had to put myself in the most darkest portion of my mental self and bring up very, very bad PTSD moments. And just every night I was writing, I was super depressed. So it really affected my sleeping when I started writing. So there were times I just couldn't. And there were times like when I was doing all these review things for a company for video games on my streams, I was like, thank God I have this instead of writing, because I don't feel like putting myself into that mood every single time. And it got very difficult and very, very hard.
Anonymous from Forums asks, how much of this book is a reflection of who you were and who you are now?
So kind of like I said, I wrote Tamir's character off of myself. Hence, my name is Tim. His name is Tamir. So, Timir. I literally, especially in the beginning of writing, because of who I was back then, it was literally like 100% myself. He's this broken individual, does not know how to be the paladin that he used to be. And he just is, do I just give up? Do I continue fighting? Like, what do I do? Give me a sign. Because at the point, the gods can go F themselves. And that's how I felt when I began writing. And then as I kind of, I guess you can almost say heal, because it's a wound that will never heal. Tamir's character started shifting during that portion. And you will see that within the writing.
Anonymous in Forums is wondering, which character surprised you the most while writing?
Surprisingly, not Tamir, because I already knew what I was going to do with him. I would have to say it would have to be Leowin's character. And she went through a phenomenal arc in the story, I think, at least. Obviously, I'm going to think this is the best story ever written because this is something I wrote. I never in a million years thought I would honestly write something 560 pages. Like, holy crap. But her character, which I based off of Katie, my wife, actually, went through the biggest arc in the story, as well as discovering who she is. And then one of my favorite parts, which happens, I think it's in between like chapter 14 and I think 20, if I remember correctly. She beats the living hell out of a person that disguised themselves and ended up being a demon, who I reference as Meg. If you know the reference, you know who Meg is if you've been in my streams. And it is, I didn't even make it like they fought. Leywin's hit. Leywin's armor is bruised. Leywin's got a busted rib. No, she just beat the living hell out of Meg. Like, just no holds bar. Meg's had like nothing. Just get out of here. One of my favorite scenes I actually wrote was that scene. And I told my wife that I wrote that scene, and I think she's super excited to read it. But yeah, Leowin was probably the one that surprised me the most, because her idea of how I had her originally written changed the most out of any character in the book, from the beginning when she's introduced to the very end. I wasn't planning on doing the ending the way I was with her, and I wasn't planning on doing the halfway point I was with her character. So yeah, Leowin definitely for sure.
So I have a question to ask. If you could, what would you recommend your readers listen to for getting in the mood when reading your book?
That is a good question. I wrote an album. Obviously I do use AI, but when I wrote this album, surprisingly enough, it's like 50% AI. I pieced together things. It is a orchestra album, for one thing, which Yato, you said you were actually a big fan of it. And you can find it on Spotify and YouTube. It's under Father Timothy, one word. Echoes of the Lost Realm. It is a 32-song, 2-hour album you can listen to while reading this book. I wrote it specifically for this book, and I will share that in the chat for everybody to see.
Candice from Discord asked, many writers describe the strange experience of rereading their work years later. What aspect of this book might surprise your future self?
I mean, I'm still surprising myself now. Just like I wrote a book. I'd have to honestly say, especially because I do plan on continuing to write at this point, I would love to be a full-time author. I have, obviously, I said the idea for a prequel. I have an idea for a completely different book series that is going to be a minimum of 5 books, as well as another idea and a short story horror compendium that's also going to be coming out this year. I feel like going back, like let's say like 5-10 years from now, when I already have like a couple books already out or even several, and rereading the first book that just started it all will probably just be like, wow, like I wrote this in one of the worst times of my, actually the worst time of my life, and this is what I got. And I probably can at least admit now, I feel like this might be my best writing to my future self is this book. I don't know if I could reciprocate the way I wrote this or the emotions I was in or the emotional state I was in when I wrote this book.
Anonymous from forums asked, was there a scene you struggled with or one that flowed effortlessly?
The battle scenes I struggled initially with. The first one in particular, which, well, not I don't consider it fight scenes, because like there were a couple fight scenes here and there. We're all saying there was like a skirmish and they would kill this and do this, and blah 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 blah. It was more so there was one chapter that ended up being 4 or 5 chapters long of a battle, like full on. I was listening to Lord of the Rings Helm Deep music. I watched Lord of the Rings Helm Deep to like get ideas and inspiration on how to write that chapter. And then it blew up into several chapters because I just kept wanting to add more. I was like, I need more context. This is too short. I need more. If it's a big battle, you look at Helm's Deep and Lord of the Rings, it's a massive chunk of the movie. I would say what, like a third of the movie is literally just the Battle of Helm's Deep.
Yeah.
So like that was probably my hardest part, was writing that. And then the very ending, I have a battle, but the group is split. I can at least say this. The group is split off. So all of a sudden it cuts to this group fighting and then this group fighting and then back to this group fighting and then back to this group fighting and then merges into one scene together. That was difficult to write because then you're keeping the continuity flowing in between both, because all of a sudden you'd be like, this person knocked into a wall. They heard the wall shatter from inside this place, yada, yada, yada. And then they're doing this. That got difficult. Just keep the flow of that for like 3-4 chapters.
Yeah, I figured that would also be difficult because reading books as well, from experience, whenever I've read, it is much harder to eccentricate on those kind of scenes, make it flow effortlessly, or make it seem like it is connected, unlike it being in a film where it's easily noticeable because you have the visuals.
Yeah.
Anonymous from forums asked, if you had to describe this book in 3 words, what would they be?
Oh, 3 words? Why would you do this to me? Oh. Question.
Hey, I didn't do this. It's the person that asked the question.
I'm gonna yell at whoever that person is. I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna find you. I mean, I'd have to, like, individual words probably to describe my book. I would probably have to, grief being one, obviously. Steadfast and reluctant.
Okay.
Thank you.
Reminds me of a job interview when they're like, what are your strengths and weaknesses?
Right? It's not an easy thing to do at all.
Candice from Discord asks, will you read your book reviews and how will you deal with bad or good ones?
Yes, I will be reading all my reviews. I am asking, by the way, because we do have individuals who will review bomb the book. I am asking that on Goodreads, if you have it, Barnes & Noble and Amazon, if you could at least put a positive review. But if you do have anything negative, or if you want to say anything else about the book, what you liked, what you didn't like after you read it, you could put it in my Discord or even just DM it to me. I'm not going to get angry at the actual bad reviews. I'll get angry at the stupid ones, for one thing. But I would like to take those bad reviews or any insight or criticism to make sure that when I write the next book, the prequel book and the horror story compendium, put that into perspective. Because obviously, being my first book, never wrote anything in my life. I edited it myself. I published it myself. I did everything by myself for this book, by the way. I'm sure the writing style is probably a little weird than like your, New York Times bestseller books. It's not going to be something, that spectacular writing style, but I'm sure the story is up there. I would like to at least say. So I'm not gonna be like, oh, screw this person and oh no, my book is perfect. My book's not perfect. I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. So I'd like to at least take the good actual bad reviews and criticism and turn it into something good.
Anonymous from forums is asking, what are you excited to explore next as a writer?
Writing more. Surprisingly, even though what I said about, putting myself into that mind state of like extreme depression and everything, it's very, for me, therapeutic and very enjoyable to just sit there and write. Like, this is a story I put together. This is a world that I created. And I'm really hoping I can turn it into something. It would be the greatest thing ever. Being able to turn this into like my full-time career would just be awesome. Like, obviously I hope people like my writing, my style and everything, because I continue to write dark fantasies. Just the person I am. I reflect that, I think, into also the games that I stream on Twitch and stuff, where I like to play those darker themed games. And that kind of shows also in my writing. So I just can't wait to explore more stories, more characters, different things. Maybe I'll write a story that's not like a medieval fantasy D&D style story. Maybe it'll be something futuristic. Maybe it'll be modern day. Who knows? I would just love to explore all of those elements.
Anonymous from forums asks, without spoilers, is there a message you hope readers take away?
Yes. Especially to the ones who have lost a child, to not give up. It's not the easiest thing in the world to continue on, especially coming from me, where I've almost did something to myself, but I didn't, because I am here talking about the book, if you catch what I mean. To take it one step at a time. You're always gonna remember everything. You're gonna close your eyes, you're gonna see that whole entire scene just played out in front of you the second you close your eyes, even for a second. It's never gonna go away, but eventually the burden of that pain gets easier to carry. But there's always days where that pain overcomes everything else. So it's just pushing forward.
Anonymous from forums asked, is there a character readers might underestimate at first?
I'd have to, honestly, I feel like probably Tamir, to be quite honest. Especially how it starts out. He's just this broken, hollow man. Everyone's gonna be like, this is the main character? Like, what were you thinking? Usually you have like this like steadfast hero who's ready to save the day. Nope, not my story. I wouldn't even really call him a hero. He's just someone trying to survive, and then everything going on turns out to be everything he needed to take care of because of what happened. So I'd probably say Tamir, without giving any more spoilers. It is so hard to not just say like, this happens here and this is why. Can't wait for people to read it. I really can't.
Dusty from forums asked, Will you make other books with different characters but based in the same universe?
I don't know, because once again, without giving spoilers, you'd have to read the book to kind of understand why the story of Tamir and everything that has happened. It's hard to write more in that world when the focus is what happened to Tamir, and that's like his story is the main story out of the group. Everybody else is kind of just living in his story in a way. I don't think I honestly will. I don't even doing a spin-off. I feel like even a spin-off it wouldn't be good enough. Even if I did it like 100 years later where all the characters are long gone and dead and there's just like a child of this person and their grandparent was this person, and I feel like I wouldn't be able to write a good enough story again in that world outside of the original book and the prequel.
Anonymous Informs ask, what part of yourself did you have to confront to finish this book? As we also know of what you have gone through in the past.
That's a good one. I had to confront a lot of my own demons in order to finish this book. Especially towards the end. Because trying to phrase everything without spoiler. Because I could easily just be like, this is why, and blah, blah, blah. So I really had to confront my grief itself as a whole. I wrote as my coping mechanism, which in turn, I think ended up pushing down my grief instead. I don't think I dealt with my grief until the final chapter and the epilogue. That is when I had to confront it, because it's like, I'm done. I just finished writing. And I sat at my computer for like 2 hours with the epilogue right there, the end right in my face, like, holy crap. And just, I broke down. Like I started crying. It was not an easy night at all. And nobody was awake because I had anybody to talk to. Like we're talking like 4:00 in the morning at this point. And just sitting there in your grief, as the grief is literally just overcoming and taking over your entire self, your coping mechanism is done. It's gone. Yes, you could write another book, but that book is not the coping mechanism. The prequel will not be a coping mechanism. So I really, really at that point had to come to terms, because there were so many times like I'm in such a bad mood. I'm hitting that bottom of the barrel again, and I would start writing, and that'd be fine because I put all of that focus into writing. Now that the focus and the story was over, overcoming that grief was the hardest thing, which is why I recommend read the epilogue. I know not a lot of people do. Read the epilogue. You will understand.
Nicholas from Discord asks, is there a character you left out? Will they be revisited later on?
There was actually. Early on, I had an idea for a few, not really major characters, but they had some decent sized roles that I couldn't fit them in properly the way I liked. Like the prime example is like the times I've rewritten chapters, I threw characters out. And then I never bothered writing them. There's a character specifically, and I don't mind bringing this one in because there's no context to this character throughout the whole entire book, so there's no spoilers. But I was writing this one chapter where the group is already formed, except for Varric, actually. So this is before the halfway point of the book. Varric was one of the last characters to kind of join the party. There was a character that I based off of someone who used to be a friend. He used to be a really good friend of mine until basically he said something not so great, thinking I should be over my grief of losing my child. I wrote a character. Best way I could put this, he was an asshole. and he was gonna not join the party initially. He was more so gonna like travel with the party until they met up with a group. I'm gonna say a group because I don't want to spoil. And he was just gonna be like, dude, what's your problem? Like, you should be over this. It was several years ago. But I couldn't fit the character in properly because if it was me during that timeline, and I guarantee the people in the party, they would have all ripped the guy's head off. Tamir would have, Leia would have, Moira would have shot an arrow from like 100 yards away and it would just hit him right in the face. Like, I couldn't properly write the character into the story. So I trashed him. He will be in the prequel though. I can tell you that now. This specific character will be in the prequel, and it's going to be great because I'm planning, and obviously this isn't spoilers for the prequel because I haven't even written it yet, so it could change, context wise. It could be very different, but I plan on having it in the prequel where Samir is in essence like in boot camp at this point with the Silver Order, which is, you'll learn more as you read. If you read the prelude of the book, it kind of explains a little bit about that, but they're the ones that like made this kind of think of like Halo and like the Spartan program. The Silver Order made the Paladin program, you could call it. So he's in boot camp, and this one guy who I think I might have him as like his bunkmate, they're just butting heads constantly. He's like, my way is better. He's like, no, it's not, you idiot. And he's gonna beat the living crap out of him to make the guy ends up just quitting because he's a quitter. And then he'll stumble across him like years later, and he's like a fake, I don't want to say priest, but he's pretends to be all like religious and he's really not. And they just have another dispute, and I think I'm gonna have him and rip his face off. And Samir's gonna be like, that's what you get. Can't wait to write that character. I couldn't properly write him in the main story. It wasn't fitting. It just couldn't work because he wouldn't have lasted. Everyone would have killed him, and everyone's gonna be like, oh, like that's a little kind of weird for your group to do that. I'm like, context wise, you do the same. I had to scrap him. I couldn't properly write the chapters with him in it at all.
I have a question to personally ask. If you could change one aspect of your book after publication, what would it be and why?
Ooh. Good question. One aspect of my book. I don't fully know because of where the story kind of came from, but I don't think it would be anything with the story itself. I love how I wrote it. I love how the characters are written in it. I think one thing might be more than one. So I might make this into like a multi-one type of thing, if that's all right. I originally wanted to make a map of the continent this is taking place in. One, I ran out of time. Two, never designed a map before. I downloaded a program and I was still trying to learn how to use this program like early December, and I still had to finish writing. I just ran out of time. It was a program that I'm like, I could do this, but then also like I had to go based off of the notes I wrote. They start here, they move this way, they go here, they go south, they go east, they go west, they go north, they go back west. So it's like I had to make sure, like, okay, this town is here, this town's supposed to be here, this town is here, blah, blah, blah. What's in between? We got a forest, we have a mountain, we have a river, we have an ocean. I wanted to make a map and put it in because, like, I love Lord of the Rings. And if you get a copy of Lord of the Rings, there's a map of Middle Earth right there. So I kind of wanted to mimic that. That would be one thing. Another thing I would probably want to change, and I kind of was in Discord. I don't remember who was in there. I think Candies might have been in there. I was kind of like talking about it a little bit. When I did character descriptions, kind of left it up a little bit more to the reader to envision who that character would look like to the reader. I didn't say like, he's 6'8". That's 6'7". He's 6'8". He has a long beard with gray and brown or whatever in it. His hair is slicked back. He has a battle scar over his left eye. He's got this or she's got this. Or I gave some description so that way you knew key things like a color of a certain character's eyes, a scar, why Moira talks with a Scottish accent, just certain little things, but I didn't go like heavy into detail where like you can like have like one of those what do they call them, the like a police station, the sketch artist, where they could just like be like, oh, he had a mole on his left cheek about like 2 inches away from his nose and blah blah blah. I didn't go into that type of detail. I wanted to pull, in essence, you could kind of say like a Dark Souls vibe, where lore wise it's kind of almost up to your own interpretation. But it at least gives you things to envision the character better and the environment. But I didn't go too heavy with it. I would probably say I would want to spend more time with descriptions. Which, who knows, I might rewrite this story just to fix all that years from now. Make like a remastered version of the book.
One idea that could eventually come up is maybe for like the prequel, you kind of make that map that you want to kind of have like an homage to what is to come in the future, i.e. Ash of the Last Paladin.
Yeah. I am, however, we are designing a website, and my wife gave a great idea of what if we'll have like a segment where you can have like character descriptions in it in the map. So the website will get a copy of the map, but I do like that idea where in the prequel, maybe we add the map pre-war.
Mm-hmm. Candice from Discord asks, when you're writing an emotional or difficult scene, how do you set the mood?
Some water now. We're going to go off on that one. So,
The gallon jug.
Hey, it works because I haven't filled it yet today. Nice. So, almost the whole entire writing was difficult. There were some scenes that really weren't too difficult to write, where I didn't really have to heavily put myself in that mood. It was just like, okay, I just got to finish writing. They're traveling here and this person does this and they fight a horde of demons. Not too difficult. But more of the heavier context scenes, before I would start writing, music was a huge, huge thing. I had to make a playlist specifically for writing to get into the mood. I would be putting my daughter down to bed, have my Bluetooth in my ear, listening to that playlist, and start the process of literally one, pissing myself off, or making myself so depressed it puts me back into the mindset of the day we were in the hospital. So bringing up all those emotions and then holding it until you could get in front of the computer to write, there were so many nights it got very, very heavy and very, 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 very difficult to sleep, to just do anything until I started writing. It was, I would definitely say, like, this will probably be the hardest thing I've ever written. Just because of the mindset and the mood I had to put myself in every single time. And like I keep saying, the final chapter and the epilogue was the worst of them all.
Candice from Discord asks, has this book made you cry in what capacity?
We answered this in a way.
Yeah.
When I wrote the ending, that was such a huge moment with finishing the book. And then, like I said, without giving spoilers, when you read the epilogue, I guarantee you 90% of the readers will shed a tear. I guarantee it. I really, really do, because of what was written and how the story went. It's it's gonna hit a very, very dark theme. But that wasn't the only time. When I very first started writing it, there were plenty of nights like that, especially in the very beginning when I wrote the first chapter. The first chapter starts everything. It just drops you right into this hellish land. And it drops you right into Tamir's grief, chapter 1. Boom. So writing that, and then there was some other segments. But the first chapter and the last, biggest heavy hitters, I think. That's what did it when I was writing it.
Anonymous from Forums asks, what did this book teach you about your own writing?
That I could write. I kept checking because I ended up using what was it, Readsy, and it had a word count on it. So I kept checking, like, do a conversion, like how many words to like how many pages, and it gave me just like an average, but it also, your average kind of depends on like the size of your book and then the spacing and this and that. So like it would be like, you're at like 273 pages, when in reality it was like 400 because of the way I wrote it, and then the size of the book being a 5x8. I was quite surprised, for one thing, I could write something that long with that many words. And to be really quite honest, the halfway point to the ending was written under a shorter amount of time than the rest of the book. Like, we're talking just a few months. And I was just 2 to 4 chapters a night I would write. It was just flowing so crazy. And this really taught me more about myself just as a person and what I could do. Like, I've always had a creative aspect of myself, but I never knew it'd be this 560 pages of a world that I built from the ground up. Never thought I could honestly do it, especially when you have people that your specific people I won't name that were like, you're never going to amount to anything in your life. You'll never do anything. Or when I told someone that I wanted to write a book when I was younger, they're like, you can't do it. You'll never be able to do something like that. Right there. Like,
Now, of course,
right there.
my bad.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good.
I know we've definitely gone over this already, but Anonymous from Forums was wondering, was this book written for others or something you needed to get out?
More so, I would say like 80%. This was something I needed to get out and do for myself. But as I started writing it more and more, I feel like this would be a very good book for people who have gone through child loss, stillbirth specifically. This would be such a great story for them to read because of the flow of it. It's going to show you that pain that you went through and how you felt like nobody around you could understand or deal with yourself or anything. But the group was always there for Tamir. And then it ended up kind of going that route where I really feel like this is more of a story for people in my wife and I's similar boat of losing a child. I really feel like that's kind of where it ended up, which is why I say more so 20%. And then 80%, this was something for myself to get out.
Anonymous from Forums asks, is this a story about redemption or about survival?
Both. So, without obviously spoilers, I would love to redo this, by the way, once everyone's had a chance to write, by the way, just to kind of go off real quick, because I would love to go into the questions that would be spoilers, because then everyone had a chance to read. Like, the book came out today, so obviously there's people who haven't even gotten the book yet. You know, some people are actually getting it today and tomorrow and next week, and it varies. So I would love to kind of redo this interview once everyone has read the book, because I'd be really curious at one, the questions, and then the context that we could give. But anyway, before I trail off. So it is both redemption and survival. You could say, especially Tamir would be, starting out, he was surviving with this grief. Like everything just went to hell on him. He lost everything. And then I would also say redemption because of what he had to go through to get out of that pit and deal with the grief. So it's definitely both, but it's also not just his story alone. There were other people who had a tragic background, not as tragic as his, but they still had a tragic background. Like this isn't a massive spoiler, but Moira's background, she was an orphan and then she turned to being a rogue. She was a rogue style character, I wrote. So like everyone had something. So it was survival turned to redemption, turned to like, you're a freaking hero of the whole world at this point. So both and more.
Candy from Discord asked, what is your favorite line from the book?
Oof. We kind of touched subject on this when I wrote the Meg character and my wife's character fighting. And I can't give the specific line. Because one, it's hard to honestly remember because I wrote it such a while ago. But two, also spoilers would be in it too. But it's just literally, it's something along the lines of before her character gives the final blow to Meg, it's just like, shut up, bitch. And it was just perfect. Perfect.
I have a question to ask. What personal experiences or beliefs influenced the core themes of your book, and how did they shape the story you wanted to tell?
Well, that is a very good question of yours. So obviously, we know the personal experiences. Losing Silas is what the core theme of this book was. It was loss, massive amounts of loss that not everybody knows or feels or knows anything about. There's everyone who's never gone through it can be like, I have no clue what that feels like. Am I wrong? No. And then turning, like, I used to be very religious, and I wrote Tamir as, being a paladin. He was a religious person. He ends up being a priest of this small village before everything happens. And next thing we know, he's like, screw the gods. I did all of this stuff for you and you took all of this away from me. Why? And that shaped this story into what it became. My own personal judgment of everything, my own personal grief, loss, and everything shaped this whole entire story from its core.
Carlos from Discord asked, did you have a favorite character to write about?
I mean, I loved writing about Meg and just getting obliterated. It is definitely it is my favorite scene I wrote, and I can't wait for specifically Katie to read it. Favorite character, honestly, they're tied. It would be Tamir and Leowyn. Those were my two favorite characters to write. They have the most context throughout the whole entire story compared to the rest of the party. Their dynamic, how everything's shaped around them, the plot twist, just everything about them. I put my own self into Tamir. So it's hard to not say he was my favorite character, but everything between those two was just, I feel like I did a very good job on how I wrote it. And then what's funny enough is people should get a certain thing. Can't say specifically what, but they should understand a certain thing pretty early on without giving context. Just pay attention to stuff. That's all I gotta say.
Dusty from Forms has asked, what authors do you draw inspiration from?
Tolkien, come on, man. I would honestly say, yeah, Tolkien was a huge inspiration because I absolutely love Lord of the Rings. And then honestly, surprisingly enough, like another inspiration I kind of grew a lot of things from would be Rebecca Yarros with the Fourth Wing, the Empyrean series, which is very newer. Did not think I was gonna like it because it is kind of like romance spicy-ish, but then it has like dragons and there's fighting and the whole world of it is really cool. And I almost thought about writing my book in a similar fashion and how Rebecca Yarros wrote. She wrote her main character Violet in first person. So everything is through her perspective, except the final chapter is always through Guy's perspective that Violet dates. And it was really cool how she did that. And I really liked it. I kind of tried it, but I couldn't do it. You know, especially like I've got this group, everyone's got their own context. Like, yeah, it's kind of easy to like have them say things and do things and yada, yada, yada. But I just could not do a first person perspective writing in Tamir's perspective. But some of the ideas that she did, some plot twists and plot points, like stuff like that, I grew inspiration from her. And then just Tolkien was massively the party is the fellowship. Hello, I literally threw that in there at one point. Like, we are the fellowship. Like, I had to throw that in there, you know, just because like I literally made them be in essence almost like the Fellowship of the Ring. They're the Fellowship of the Burden, I guess you could call it, you know. And the battle sequences, I took inspiration from Tolkien with Helm's Deep and everything, like all his battle scenes. Like, that's where I grew my inspiration from. Is it as good as his? Oh God, no, not even close. But at least it helped. So those would be my two probably biggest inspirations, were those two.
Anonymous from Forums asked, who do you hope feels seen by this book?
People similar to me, my wife. People who have lost a child. It's not something talked about a lot at all. Stillbirth, miscarriages, they are not talked about enough. They're way too common. And I mean, when you go through it, you join that club, basically. And you start finding out all these people around you went through it and you never knew because nobody talks about it. It needs to be talked about more, which is how this story started. And it's very sad that not enough people talk about it, which means not enough people know about it, which means not like people don't understand the pain that parents go through when this happens.
I have a question to ask. Was it harder to write for the main character or the protagonist? And if so, if so,
I just see the question just like
For some reason, this one ain't showing up.
all right.
What the hell?
Nat, do you have the question at least? You do have it in front of you? Okay.
That does.
yeah.
So keep it.
It's like highlighted in a different color.
Fine. Keep it on the previous question. Nat, ask the next question, and then we'll just move on.
Okay. Was it harder to write for the main character or the protagonist? And if so, what made it so difficult?
Main character for sure. I can at least say this: the protagonist, not. So the main character for sure, especially just because of who the main character is. Literally, Tamir is me, just not fat and squishy and doesn't know how to use a sword. But I literally made Tamir myself, so it was kind of difficult, but kind of not. But just going through and just constantly putting myself into that mindset was probably the hardest part writing, because there were so many moments that would reflect or something would happen to Tamir and this was me. Like, I went through really bad like chest pains, which ended up being anxiety. I literally threw that into the character. His chest tightened, didn't know what was going on, shortness of breath, like blah 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 blah. And I literally just was very exposed in writing Tamir.
Anonymous from Forums asks, what part of this book was the hardest to write?
Chapter 1 and the ending. Like we've kind of been saying throughout the night, just especially because chapter 1 is bringing up everything and kind of remembering all those little specific details. And then the ending for undisclosed non-spoilers, because I can't say anything about it yet. The ending and the epilogue, just because of how it ends, what happens, and kind of like what I want without saying anything else. Those were definitely the hardest parts to do.
I think we're on the same question. Candies from Discord asks, what's the most difficult thing about writing characters of the opposite gender?
Good on. So I think one of the hardest parts I actually had was, and this shouldn't be much of a spoiler to be quite honest, especially if you kind of know the backstory of Meg. No, the character's name is not Meg in the book, but if you know, you know. Meg gets flirtatious with Tamir in front of Leowen. And it was like this awkwardness, and like Leowen has a bit of like an outburst, but like writing that like flirtatious vibe and like thinking of like basically the opposite sex and like flirting with a man, it was not easy to write initially, but then all I had to do was just remember some of the stuff Meg tried to do, and it was pretty freaking easy. I can't wait for people to just meet Meg. I really can't wait.
Meg.
I can't wait. Because if you end up liking Meg, you have an issue. Let's just put it that way. Like everyone's gonna love the chapter that just can't wait. Can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait for Kate. I told Katie, when you get to this chapter, I have to be in the room while you are reading it. I need to see here. I just need to witness what you do.
We all need to witness it. I need a recording.
Yeah, we all need a recording in this.
I'll have her just start reading it in like Discord.
I have a question to ask. Is there a message the main character would give if the readers ask them for one? And if so, what is it?
To probably never give up, even though no matter how dark your surroundings ended up being, no matter how hard it is to see the light or how far away the light may seem, or even trying to climb out of the pit and you have nothing but a broken ladder. Even light can show in the dark. Even a broken ladder, you can climb out of the dark. To never give up and to just keep taking a step forward, no matter how hard it is or how small of a step it may be. That single step moving forward could mean so much more than you even realize from the beginning.
Anonymous from Forums asked, did your original vision change as you were writing?
Yes. Always had an idea of beginning to end and middle point. Always knew middle point was going to have like a specific battle. The ending was always going to end a specific way. The ending surprisingly changed the most in my writing. The beginning stayed the same for the most part, just rewriting chapter 1 with more context, more words, more descriptions and stuff. But the ending changed so much more, where I had to go back in earlier chapters and the prelude and put in key details because of things that happen in the ending. Can't say what, because they are massive spoilers, and they're spoilers to the prequel book, mind you. I will say that the ending with a specific character, not saying if it's part of the group or one of the bad guys or one of the demons or what, that specific character is actually in the prelude and will be in the early segment of the prequel. You'll understand when you read the ending and then read the Paladin of the Silver Order, which will come out later this year. I am already started writing it. But yeah, the ending changed so drastically. I wish I could say what, but there's still details in the original ending that are still in the current ending. And for one thing, the big bad was never originally in the original ending. That changed at the very end. And that was when I was debating on extending the book to at least a second book. But I didn't know how to do it without potentially doing something that I don't think would have had the same context as the whole book. Yeah, the ending changed the most, but it still stayed along its linear path. But a lot of the details were drastically different. Like I said, the big bad was one. Where they fight is another. Location is another. I was originally, this I can at least say, I was originally going to have the final battle sequence, basically. Like, I think of it, I wrote this book as if it was like a video game in a way. Go through all this and your final fight, basically. The final fight was supposed to happen in a place called the City of the Dead. It was not going to be a place of the mortal plane. It was going to be this supernatural world between basically Earth and Hell. And everything there was dead. And the group was going to go there to end basically the demons attacking and all of this stuff. But they were also going there to rescue somebody that Tamir and Leowin found out that they were still there the whole entire time. I completely scrapped that. That is not in the book. There is a chapter called The City of the Dead, though. That I kept. And I turned the City of the Dead into a location, but it is a location on Earth. So that's what you can kind of say. Like, that it's such a huge, drastic difference. But story-wise, it's almost the same minus several details.
Anonymous from Forums was wondering, what can you tell us about the main character without spoiling too much?
So Tamir was a paladin of the Silver Order. The paladins aren't your average knight. They're not even your average warrior. They were select few. Like I said, prime example that I kind of thought of was Halo, Master Chief, and the Spartan program. So think of Master Chief being the only Spartan. Tamir is the only paladin left. There are no other paladins left at all. I explain it briefly in the prelude, which I knew, I think if this turned into a book, I was going to write the prequel, which explains how he became a paladin, what the paladins were, what they did. So this I can at least say without spoilers, with context, is a paladin is almost a supernatural warrior, but a warrior of like this holy light. They get a specific weapon that is unique to themselves. I can't say that too much though, because that would be spoilers of the main book plus the prequel. Understand how he gets it in the prequel. So being the only paladin tells you one thing. What happened to the others? That's the name. Ash is the last paladin. Kind of really can't say it's a spoiler that there's no other paladins and the rest of the paladins all died. There was war several years prior, before the book, and he was the last paladin standing at the last biggest Hellgate that he survived for several days. His whole entire squad destroyed, all died in front of him. He was the last surviving member, and he left. He couldn't deal with what happened with the war. Everyone wanted to praise him as a hero. He was like, screw this, I'm out, I can't, I'm done. So he finds this village. He ends up staying at this village where like it's a small, quaint little town. You know, people obviously think he's something, but they don't know who he is, you know. And then he meets a girl there. They get married. They have a child, obviously, because hence he has a stillbirth that happened. So going from the scars of war to an average day life to then being reunited with your old paladin self was too much for him. Hence the grief. And that's about as much as I could probably say without spoiling way too much.
Candice from Discord asks, what was one of the most surprising things you learned in creating your book?
That I could write? Like seriously, like it's literally just like I was surprised I could write this whole full-blown story, characters, context, descriptions of characters that I wrote, like just everything. Like we're talking like 560 pages of just not blah 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 or like what like I was very surprised that I could write that much, especially how quickly I wrote the second half of the book. Like I started writing this literally 2 years ago. And the second half of the book I wrote in months. The longest part of the book, by the way, because the first several chapters are not very long or heavily detailed. They started getting more detailed and they started getting a lot longer later on. Things that were happening. I was very, very quite surprised.
All right. Next question from Candies. The question is, do you think about your audience or write primarily for yourself? Which we know the answer to this already from previous question.
Yes.
It's fine if I change it up a little bit.
Yeah.
When was the point you started writing for more of the audience than just yourself?
Definitely somewhere in the second half. Probably, honestly, bits and pieces. The ending is more so for myself, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I would probably say also my wife. I'm pretty sure when she reads it, she'll agree with that statement. Certain segments I would say were more intended for the reader.
Mm-hmm.
Primarily though myself, like we've kind of said, there's like this 80-20 split throughout the whole entire book. Yeah, just little segments would be more so. I mean, I feel like the whole book regardless is going to be for the audience anyway, obviously, but it was primarily writing for me. And I still feel like though as an author, I truly believe that when someone writes something, they are writing it for themselves. This is because I feel like if you it's what can I use as example? We're streamers. Here's a good example as streamers. Forcing yourself to play a game because it's very popular and you think you're going to get growth from it, but you absolutely hate the game. It's like a D&D player playing Call of Duty. It'd be like Nat playing Baldur's Gate. It's not fitting. It's not for you. How, like Nat, how could you write a story about Baldur's Gate if you hate it, but it's popular? You know, you wouldn't be able to, right?
Not at all.
Exactly. So I really feel like as a writer and an author, like I feel like you have to write something that's yours. Not anybody else, not for anybody else, yours. And I really believe that. Plus, I can definitely say there are certain segments that I get a lot of satisfaction. Satisfied? I don't freaking know. English is hard. Where I could totally understand how certain moments are written and how it makes an author or even like a TV producer or director feel, because you're like, ooh, this is gonna mess with the audience really bad, where it will probably make them upset, but they're like, I need to read more to know how this ends, and that's what's gonna happen. And I did that. There's a good moment in the book where something happens, and then you go like 7 chapters of not knowing what the hell is going on. And it's only speculation. And I can't wait. I can't wait for people to be like, I hate you. I can't believe you did that. I had to stay up all night to read that just to know what happened. And the satisfaction of that, I cannot wait. But then if you read anything, that type of stuff happens a lot. You need those moments because you know at that point, this is going to make your reader read or play the game or watch the show or watch another episode. Those cliffhangers force the engagement at that point. Remember, don't force engagement in other things because that's just stupid. It forces the reader to read more, and it makes them need to know because they are loving the story, and it's that yearning, that longing to just like need to know what happened. Think about it. Think of a video game, movie, TV show, or a book you have read, watched, or played that has no cliffhangers. Would it be good still? 0 cliffhangers, no drama. What are we watching? Just paint dry at that point? I feel like it would be very boring, right? You need those cliffhangers.
Anonymous from Forums asked, what do you hope readers feel when they finish the last page?
I hate saying it. I really do, because it's always nobody likes to feel emotional. But I could definitely, if you understand it, have an ounce of sympathy inside yourself. Some people don't, and I question that, Meg. I would have to say, when you read and you finish and you read the epilogue, no, there are people that don't read epilogues. I still don't understand that. When you read the epilogue, I feel like it's going to make a good 90% of the readers emotional. And it's going to be a very mixed emotion between, I just finished this story, I can't believe that's how it ended, and then like depression, but then also like happiness at the same time. And I can't say anything else out of that. I can't give, this is why you're going to feel this, and this, because then it's given too much.
Anonymous from Forums asked, was there a particular scene or chapter that came to you fully formed?
Chapter 1, even though I rewrote it because I needed to add more to it. My writing changed as I progressed writing more chapters. Like, it got better. Especially like context and just like all that stuff. Chapter 1, definitely. And then even though I changed so much of the final few chapters, those chapters were very, very easy to write. They were actually some of my quickest ones, yet they are the longest ones. Because I knew the second my fingers touched the keyboard, the words just started flowing until I was done with the chapter.
Dusty from Forums asked, if your book was adapted to film, who would be your dream cast?
Ooh. Oh god, that's actually hard. Shoot. Oh, this is a tough one. Because I don't really have like really favorite like actors and actresses. Uh oh no. Let's try and break this down. Yeah, we have to have Pedro Pascal be Tamir. We need to have Bella Ramsey be Moira. Come on. I think that's perfect casting right there. Let's go, right? There we go. Perfect. Everybody else doesn't matter. No, I'm just kidding. I would honestly say Varric, who I could see playing Varric's character pretty well. And I don't know if it's just because we just got done watching this show, but when he had like a bigger beard, I could kind of see it, especially the type of character he is and how like he could be sarcastic, he could be angry, he could be like goofy. I would definitely say Hopper from Stranger Things, which what's his name? David Harbour, right?
I believe it is David Harbour.
So I would definitely say Varric could be played by him, which I feel like would be very fitting because Varric's also supposed to be like on the older side as well as Tamir, but I think Varric's actually a little older. Yes, Varric is older than Tamir, only by a little bit. Everybody else though is like kind of hard to really think of. Just because I saw someone in chat say Henry Cavill would not play a bad Tamir, especially with what he did with Geralt in The Witcher originally, which is still really sad that he's not in it anymore. That is the dumbest thing to do. I don't know if I would cast him 100%, but like at the same time, like he would do the character justice with the raw emotions and then other context things I cannot mention. There are other things going on within Tamir besides grief. And I can't say anything more than that. I feel like he could do that split with that character pretty well. Is there somebody that I would probably prefer? Maybe. I'm not good with the actors and actresses, but we're gonna kind of nitpick this down. I mean, he's also a nerd too, so he would be really good. Like he would read the book and probably like he'd be like, "Hey, I need to speak to you about this character so I understand." So that he would be pretty good with it. Now we still have Leowyn. We still have Moira. Well, Moira is going to be what's her face? Who's we'll call it? I'm just kidding. I would not want Bella Ramsey in this book at all. Oh dear God, she would murder. Probably like honestly, Moira's like top 3 best characters I think written in this book. She's funny, she's sarcastic. We have a phasmophobia moment in the book, which I just was perfect. I had to write that in there. It was great. Made it a Revenant, by the way. We still have her. We have Snazzy's character, Siren. Eowyn. Oh God. Like I'm thinking more so like because this is like action. But I don't want to just put like someone in like from a comedy as an action character, but they also kind of need to have that sarcasm as well. But like this is hard. Very, very hard. Like, oh my God. I'm trying to think like what movies have I watched recently and I really like those like actors and who would be good, especially because like Moira would be, she's in her early 20s, 22, 21. So is Snazzy's character. He's like 23, 24. I mean, Snazzy's character with the type of way he talks and says things, I feel like Tom Holland could be a decent fit, especially with how he does like Spider-Man, because he's like that kind of character that's kind of quirky, kind of weird, but like at the same time, like he's there, ready to fight, you know?
It's a miracle we don't have a Tom Holland as a main character for once.
I know, what?
Who would have guessed?
Right?
Can Nicolas Cage play Snazzy?
Oh my god. Nicolas Cage pretending to be like a 23-year-old plague doctor. Where is Snazzy when we need him right now?
Yeah, I know.
Snazzy, who do you want to play your character? Nicolas
Who would you
Cage.
want the most to play Meg? Is what I want to know.
Ooh. Who do I? Bella Ramsey.
Bella Ramsey.
But at the same time, I want to be fitting because she needs to be a lot older. And she's terrible at trying to pretend to be that as Ellie in part 2. Maybe it could be like Rosie O'Donnell.
Jesus.
Damn.
Rosie O'Donnell when Meg transforms into what Meg is truly. There we go. Roseanne Barr. We could do that.
Roseanne Barr, yeah.
But then we need like a previous version of Meg too, though, because she goes from like normal looking to like this just like hideous, ugly glob mess.
Wait, who's the lady that played in Matilda, the angry teacher?
Oh, I know who that okay. Whoever she is, that's who we need.
Yep.
I remember who that was. So her, we'll go with that. Now we still need the other character. We still have Leowen. We have Nicolas Cage as Snazzy. And we still need Moira. Now, who would you want to play yourself?
Pam Ferris is who y'all are thinking of.
I mean, I feel like it's a biased question because mine's not even really an actor. It'd be Rhea Ripley off the bat.
There we go. There you go. Leowen's character, I think I know who. I gotta look her up though. I can't remember her name, surprisingly. But I want to say the name and then say kind of like the 2 movies that I think of. That I think she would be a very, very, very good fit. Casting. Kate Beckinsale. Van Helsing and Underworld. I feel like her playing that character and like the style of the character, she'd be good. I think she'd be very, very good. Did we leave anybody out? I don't think so. I think we hit we hit the main party, right? We hit Tamir. We said Henry Cavill. We hit Siren, which Tom Holland then turned into Nicolas Cage. We hit Meg. We hit Leowen. We hit Moira. Katie just said to go on in chat. Jensen Ackles, actually. I got to retract Henry Cavill. Jensen Ackles. Especially the way he is in Supernatural and the different emotions Dean goes through in Supernatural. I think he'd be a pretty damn good Tamir Valmar. I think he could do the role pretty good. He should have been Joel, by the way, in The Last of Us. Not Pedro
I can
Pascal.
see that more, yeah.
Yeah, I got to go with that. Definitely 100,000%, and not just because my wife loves him, but I really think he'd be really good. Which means we could have Henry Cavill as somebody else. Honestly, Henry Cavill could be Azazel at that point. He could be one of the demon lords.
Now, I'm curious on what you'd say. Who would be the ending protagonist?
Oh, surprisingly enough, just because I can't think of anyone else that would be fitting,
Mm-hmm.
but he kind of could be. is, I forget, I don't know his name honestly, but he did Vecna in Stranger Things. I could see him being the big bad at the very, very end. That is the only time you come across the big bad. Can't say anything else. So why or anything?
Jamie Campbell. That's who it was.
I think because of the character itself, I think he could fit that character and how I describe the character and who the person is. I will say this, everyone knows who this person is, but not like in the book. Like, it's obviously I used like demonology and stuff in this book.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone will know this character once it comes. I'll be surprised actually if people guess the character before they show up, because it was scripted at the very end. I wasn't originally going to do this, and then it merged into that storyline. So there was like honestly like no context until like the end. That's honestly, I prefer it that way, because you don't know, and all of a sudden it's like, what just happened? So yeah.
Okay. Well, I figured out what happened earlier. So we saw it earlier, but I'm gonna say this now. This is the last question.
Oh,
but
okay.
Anonymous from Forums asks, what was happening in your life when this book truly started? Of course, as we know, the stillbirth of your son.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you want to add into that mix that was also going on, or go more into depth on it?
That's definitely the biggest part, was losing Silas, which played a massive role in writing this book. I mean, I have a dedication to Silas in the book itself. Like, a lot of people kind of skip over, you know, those beginning, like the index and all that stuff. I definitely heavily recommend just like go through those. They're short little like 1-page things. He was obviously a massive influence to this book. My own personal struggles and my own personal demons, which that will be a key thing in the book and in dealing with Tamir Veilmar. It's just all about the personal struggles. Silas, like I said, being literally the main. Like, I couldn't have written this story as it is without going through that trauma. Sucks. Because it's not a story I would have ever wanted to write. And I would have never written this if it wasn't for that trauma, or that PTSD, that depression, that anxiety, that suicidal thoughts, and almost suicidal action. There's really nothing else that could have made me write this book. Even when I lost my job before Kinsley was born, wasn't even a factor into the book at all. Minus they're just stupid.
I mean, hey, there's one positive with them firing. Gave you much more time, much needed time to finish the book.
It definitely did.
Where we are now,
which sucks at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But with that job, I don't know if this book would be out right now. I don't think it would be. I don't know if this book would have gotten finished, to be really quite honest. So it would be awesome if this turns into something massive and then allows me to continue to write, because I would love to just continue, write another book, write something else. Like I said, I want to do this year, I'm going to try and come out with the Paladin of the Silver Order and a short horror story compendium book this year. Maybe there'll be more. I don't know. It just, everything kind of varies, and it also just kind of just depends on what's going on. If I have the time to do that. Because writing's not easy. You have to find time for it. You know, especially having a child, it's you don't have the time during the day to, especially with ADHD, to shut everything down and just focus, put the blinders on, and you're just focusing on writing by itself. Like I could only do that late at night. So that's where it kind of gets difficult too. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. Fingers crossed.
Damn, I was not expecting to go through 50 questions that fast.
We did go through them pretty quick. We really did. But you know what though? I think we're just under 2 hours for the live stream. I do think that was pretty good. You know, I think we had very great questions. So thank you to everyone that, you know, submitted them. I really like this idea. I would love to honestly do this later on in the year once everyone has had a chance to write the book, because I'm sure people are going to have other questions. By the way, I'm pretty sure people are going to be like, I want to know, why'd you write this character? I want to know why you did this in the ending. Why did you specifically write this? Or what was going on with this? You know, I feel like people will have different questions, and then it could be one of the things that, like, we could talk about spoilers. So I would not mind redoing this later on, like 6 months from now, or maybe even shorter than that. I don't know. I think it'd be something really cool to do. I feel like a lot of people will have very different questions once they read the book, especially ones that are like, will you write a sequel? Will you write this? Will you do this? Read the book and find out.
I mean, one thing that could also be done is we could do this again, like a week before like the prequel launches, because it gives people more than enough time. Also gives you time to write the sequel.
That'd be probably
so it could be a mixture of people asking just questions that you could also answer, that you know if it will be answered in the prequel.
Yeah, be a good idea.
Do almost like a story time too, kind of like how we used to in the beginning, like when you were first writing the book.
I know. I used to, I think I read the first like 3 or 4 chapters, the original first 3 to 4 chapters, by the way, which have all been rewritten.
Do something like that, kind of like a you pinpoint either certain parts of the book after people have like taken the time to read it, and then we kind of like go over it and just talk about it and get questions from that. Maybe
that'd be kind of cool. Honestly, that'd be kind of cool. Be pretty cool. This was definitely something very fun. I thoroughly enjoyed this, as well as I'm pretty sure everyone that is in here that wanted these answers, or I'm sorry, questions answered. I think I have dyslexia. And thank you to Yato and Nat for, you know, doing everything they did for this stream. The only thing I did was put together a trailer, which we are going to re-show as we end. Wrote the freaking book, obviously. And I did the overlays and the new starting soon screen, and that's it. They got the questions. Yato made the forum for you guys to submit your questions. He put everything together with Nat and Candies as well, who helped out with it. And everyone that asked all the questions, like, we got just under 2 hours worth of context and content that I am going to split and throw over on like Instagram and TikTok, you know, because TikTok I have reformatted to be my author social media instead of my streaming. I'm kind of keeping that away from YouTube, because when you start splitting the balance of it, it starts fucking up your algorithm. So we got a lot, honestly. Yeah, so much of the night left. We can chill, relax, play some video games. Sure, the wife wants to, or Nat wants to, because you know she disappeared for like a year.
I'm still waiting for it.
Well, I think at this point we're gonna get ready, and we're just gonna end the stream. Honestly, if you guys want to see the trailer one more time, you're about to see it. So stick around, watch the trailer. It is only a minute long. The trailer will go live on all forms of social media tomorrow, not tonight. It will go live tomorrow at some point once I get up and kind of get some things situated, and I can get it uploaded to, you know, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all of the fucking socials. And yeah, everyone have a wonderful evening. Yato, thank you. Nat, seriously, thank you. Both of you. You guys were a massive help. I would love to do this again down the road. And yeah, that's it. Okay, bye.